Do you know how much dopamine you get in your veins when you start off a project and get people excited and you go for it and you're successful and people come in and they eat and they have a great time. There's, oh, there's the chef there. Yes, that's sweet. What a wonderful dinner we had. Thank you very much. That's a drug. That, I can tell you, is hard to say goodbye to. But I did it. I realized that I couldn't coincide the two. I couldn't make sense of how to do this in a way that for me, based on my values, would make me content. There was no direction in one or the other that I could honestly feel would be right for me. Because I need the creative work, and I find that the operation of a restaurant was not optimal for my way of dealing with creative work or how I enjoy doing creative work. What is the right path for you? If you're a chef or if you're a creative, if you work in a field where, you might be a carpenter or furniture maker, at one point there's the temptation of scaling and striking the right balance and doing it in a way that is financially sustainable, but morally and philosophically dense and thought through. That's difficult. That's not easy. If you have any questions, please put them in the comments below, because I'm really interested in hearing how other people have solved these issues. Because I find that the restaurant industry, no matter how, or no matter what path you take, is a fantastic place. And it's a fantastic culture. And I find that it should get more credit than it necessarily gets lately. And, it has 1,000 flaws. But that's society. It's not the industry in itself. That's just how it is. Let me know. I'm very inspired by my wife that is a doctor. And what I find with her, as she explained to me her path, how it's set up for her as a doctor in Denmark, it is very, very, very clear. For every stage of your life, there's a position for you to take. Because as you gain expertise as a doctor at a hospital, your work becomes accordingly adjusted to your expertise and the workload to be less. You want the experts because they are essential for the running of a hospital, for the problem solving that obviously needs to be going on in a place like that. So you want to keep on the masters of the trade. You want them there. So once you are 50, it's clear that you're not going to take as many night shifts as you did when you were 25 or 30 or 35. So there's a plan. And there's a plan where you keep being rewarded for focusing on your craft. Within the restaurant industry, I don't see that. So if you want to be the craftsman, and if you want to sacrifice so much of your life, you have to keep on doing it to a point where I find that it's not sustainable. Because I do believe that it is the right path to take when you are in your 20s, because you need to obtain the maximum amount of skill in the minimum amount of time. You just go for it, just learn things. And it's not just, just go one way. You experiment, yeah, but don't play PlayStation in your 20s. Just find your passion and go for it. Get involved in it. Make yourself and your skill set unique within this realm that you choose. But then at one point, so if you're a graphic designer, I guess at one point maybe there's a way for you to move on within your craft at a certain age. But the physicality that is within our world, the level of stress that is within our world, I think is very much to be dealt with when you are in your 20s and in your 30s. But at one point, we need to be able to reward those that are true masters, the true Giros of this craft. And I don't see how that's done. And I find that that's mainly because we have a completely screwed idea of how we value food, products, food, produce, and cooking in general, that is simply not valued enough for there to be space enough for there to be a reward for a true master. Now, Japanese culture is completely different than fucking everybody else, right? So that's how you can have a zero there. But still, there's also elements of that culture that, the guy just works all day and finds that that's fine. So we also have to acknowledge that we live in a culture where we expect more than just work. But how do we do it? I think it's a very, very difficult question to answer. What are your thoughts? Do you find that food is valued and cooking is valued, and therefore there's a space for the craft of cooking that food where it is rewarded to the level it should be? I think unfortunately it's not. So if you are successful and you're good at it, you better have a strategy that at one point makes you diversify a little bit and find and strike the right balance for you to be able to obtain a lifestyle that is compatible with other things than just your craft. Because as you dedicate yourself to the craft in your early years, you have to consider that that's not who you are 20 years later and 30 years later. And that's not a case against working hard in your 20s. It's just a case for considering what will be your endgame. I somehow managed to find my endgame, to get what I find is proper retribution and proper reward for the 25 years I spent in this industry, and the reward that I want and needed and dreamt of, I realized, was time to rewrite my own story. And now I'm an expert, and I feel like an expert, and I have a lot of thoughts and considerations and reflections on what I've done and on this industry and on the creative life. And that is what I want to spend my time on. And I want to be able to work in a way where I am rewarded for my expertise. That is my ambition. Subscribe to the newsletter if you ever feel like getting some of these thoughts on paper. I send it out maximum once a week. And it's just these considerations that I have that I put into pen and paper and think about them a little longer. I will also, on the newsletter, sort of post and write about the process behind writing the book that I'm working on. So yeah, stay in touch and thank you.